November 24th, yesterday to 2015, I was sipping a smoothie in a cafe on Lonsdale Street. The name of the smoothie was What the Fruit. And I happened to see the tabloid before me, which was The Age, and an article by ex-Treasurer of Australia, Peter Costello. And this man had the unmitigated cheek and colossal gall to say that all these various historic events have been Muslim-based. And I thought, I'll fix him. I'll go home and write an article. So I first phoned my editor at Gumshoe News, and she said, sorry, I saw it too, and I just wrote the article. So you see, great minds work alike. But here I am in front of a whiteboard, and I would like to explain that as from this moment, any person who continues to say that these events were religious, ideological, Middle East, that person should be, how you say, chased out of town, right? Your basic whiteboard outline reminder of which people are Islamists, semi-Islamists, and so forth. So up here we've got shootings, you just run in and kill a lot of people with a gun, or bombings. To remind you quickly, Dunblane was in Scotland. They killed a lot of children. Port Arthur, they killed 35 tourists in one day. Charlie Hebdo, that was last January when all the heads of state like Netanyahu and Angela Merkel, and they all stood in a big line and said, we believe in freedom of speech and we can't have those guys running in to a cartoon office where they drew a mocking of Muhammad and Islam stuff. And then this, the more recent one, which I must say I don't know a whole lot about, that Bataclan Paris one. And then the bombings would be WTC basement. I think most Americans just are still not aware of it. Okay, Oklahoma Federal Building, 1995. I think everybody knows that. Many children were killed when they were in the daycare center and all that. Paris Metro. Now that was just like the London Tube one, but 10 years before it. Many people killed on the tube in London, in Paris. The 9/11 famous one, including the Pentagon scenario, the London Tube, which is sometimes called 7/7 in the year 05, and the Boston Marathon. So just to make a columns here of what do they have in common? Well, was there a drill going on that day? Apparently there was in the Paris one recently, but not at that place. Of course, everybody knows that Able Danger or Vigilant Guardian of various full-scale military drills were going on, including the hitting of the New York Trade Center as part of their drill, well prepared. London Tube, famous case of the man got on the radio right away when, I remember this when it was happening, he said, but I'm running a drill in those same 4 London stations, three train stations and 1 bus thing. And then the Boston Marathon, was there a drill? Yes, Homeland Security was running a drill and going around with megaphones just before the accident at the finish line and saying, don't worry, this is a drill. All right, why am I putting these here? Well, if these are all your basic Muslim terrorists, how did they know to have government drills going on the thing? Okay. Prior government involvement, none that I know of Dunblane. Port Arthur, yes, that boy who was accused of it was in with the Tavistock Clinic since like kindergarten. Charlie Hebdo, I can't exactly know what the prior was there. I'll take it off. Bataclan, yes, Bataclan. All right, of the bombings, there's no question that the FBI were deeply involved as a prior involvement with the guys who were then accused of doing it. In fact, one of the FBI informants amazingly recorded it. He must have been in the old days when you could put a sort of recorder in your pocket and not have to hand it in at the front desk. So that it had FBI involvement. The federal building of mucho FBI involvement on the spot that day at the, I don't mean going into rescue, you understand? Okay, New York. Oh, the Paris one. It's now known that it was the Algerian Secret Service that carried it out, I assume, on behalf of the French government, but the French government has not admitted to that, but the new government in Algeria did admit to it. The 9/11 thing, again, I remember on the day or a few days afterwards, someone said they had phoned, they heard that Muhammad Atta, one of the terrorists, did we have prior involvement? Well, he is said to have done his airline training at the Maxwell, no relation, Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. And of course, Osama has total CIA background, and his brother is on the board of Carlisle with the Bush family. And London Tube, those 4 lads were very much under government watch, and I'd assume they're informants of the same type as we have with FBI. And the Boston Marathon, although they immediately denied, the police said, no, we don't know who it is, we never met them before, but that's just not true, and they now admit much involvement. Just quickly, who is said to have done it and why? Dunblane, a nutter. Port Arthur, a nutter. You know how you just have to kill 35 people if you're a nutter. Charlie, Paris Hebdo, 2 brothers, Islamic reasons, 8 jihadists on the recent one. WC basement, of course. I mean, it has to be a Muslim down there in the basement blowing things up. The Oklahoma City, no Muslim involvement. It was supposed to be patriots, like a militia-type man, Timothy McVeigh. Paris Metro, again, blamed on the Muslims. New 9/11, 19 hijackers. 19 men got on planes in airports without passports, without tickets. Okay, London Tube, 4 lads. I don't think they're brothers, but brothers seem to feature in this. And Boston Marathon, 2 brothers, who certainly had prior government involvement, probably because the Chechen factor is something that the U.S. FBI or CIA is always probably trying to stir up. But anyway, okay, that's who they are. And how conveniently did they die or get rid of them? This nutter committed suicide. That nutter was meant to. They threw a grenade into the Seascape cottage where he was staying, and he was to have burnt to death, but he came running out with his back on fire. So he's still alive, been in jail for many years, unfairly charged, of course. Charlie's Paris. The guys go into this editorial office of the Muhammad cartoons, just shoot everybody, and then they walk out. They are brothers too, also their last name is Kouachi, and they find their way maybe 2 days later into a warehouse, and they're shot on the spot. Well, if you've got them cornered in a warehouse, why don't you just mace them or do something so we could perhaps put them on trial? No, shot to death. The recent one, those guys in the stadium, of course, as soon as you've done a major thing like that, you just want to die, right? So you blow yourself up. This guy, he's in prison. And the famous part of that is that Lynn Stewart, this guy's called the Blind Sheikh, he was caught doing the FBI affair in the WTC basement, but his lawyer, Lynn Stewart, was then imprisoned. She's been in prison for many years, but she was let out this year, age 75, because she has terminal breast cancer. But, she was like defending her client, and I guess that's not allowed anymore. And that's not true. She was accused of letting him pass messages out. And by the way, the boy from the Boston Marathon now is not allowed to receive visitors, and I guess the whole public is supposed to say, oh yeah, that's right, because he might tell somebody something else about how to do another marathon. So he doesn't get to be heard from. Most of these people are, I call it, conveniently died. They're just unavailable. That one is in prison. Now, of the McVeigh team, McVeigh was executed, but his pal Nichols is still in prison. We don't get to talk to him either. The Paris Metro, sorry, I don't know what became of those. The 9/11, of course, all those guys playing in the planes just banged into those walls, didn't they? And they died by choice. London Tube, each boy who supposedly had the usual backpack on those tube stations, they died in situ. And finally, the Boston Marathon boy, well, there was a story about how one brother ran the other brother over. Oh, God. And did not happen. And finally, was there a court inquiry? Well, there was the Cullen inquiry for the Dunblane, but later poo-pooed by Lord Burton. no coronial inquiry or trial for the Australian one. When they went in Paris, Charlie Hebdo, the police chief, Helric Friedo, he was investigating it, and then he committed suicide. Isn't that amazing? And I don't know that one. And the final thing is McVeigh has been executed, I guess, way back in 95 or thereafter. And those guys, we had a 9/11 commission, if you can bear to read it. And the London Tube, I guess because they died, there was no further need to do anything. And the Boston Marathon, we now have a confession. Now, don't forget, just one more thing on the Boston confession. The family, in the person especially of Aunt Marit Tsarnaeva, who is a lawyer, that's beside the point, I suppose, she has written to the judge to say that when the defense team of the young boy went to the parents, they said to the parents, you must write your son a letter telling him to confess, because after all, he's in prison and we can do things to him there, can't we? So question, what would you do if it was your son? Would you tell him to write what you're supposed to tell him to write, or would you let them do things to him in prison? I rest my case.